Welcome to the Long Beach Unified School District Office of Curriculum, Instruction, and Professional Development Response to COVID-19 School Closures. Our response was anchored in several core Long Beach values represented in the phases of our planning and the ways our thinking developed over time. We operated with a gradual release model in mind as we built system capacity, worked to meet needs in the field, and learned with one another, guided by the motto that we often need to go slow to go fast, which is a core component of the Long Beach Way. This timeline represents the phases of our response and the ways our thinking developed over time. When schools closed on March 13th, our team immediately began to take stock of our ability to provide remote instruction. We identified an initial strategy to prepare the system through the use of Google Classroom and began to ideate around webinar support. Our initial classroom work focused on disseminating resources to teachers and modeling classroom building. Paper copies of learning opportunity packets were also being developed to support home learning. During this time, teachers were creating their Google Classroom digital learning spaces. To identify our current state, we evaluated by content areas and across grade levels, as well as looked at internal partners such as Khan Academy, and then created a K-12 coherence matrix. We organized around these central questions. What can we leverage in the system, and what would it look like to sustain learning in an online environment? Based on our planning, we began to launch our system around home learning. We developed a teacher communication website as a centralized communication hub and launched teacher and parent helplines. We began providing technical training webinars as well as holding virtual curriculum office hours in each content area for support. We also developed a peer mentorship program to provide additional technology support to individual teachers. Our internal teacher communication website was updated at least weekly and created a centralized hub for messaging and sharing of key resources. We collaborated with other departments in the central office to streamline teacher communications and resources. This site was also used as a tool by administrators across the system to guide the work of providing home learning. Teachers who attended our centrally deployed webinars provided over 3,200 pieces of feedback. Of that feedback, 2/3 of respondents stated that webinars sufficiently or significantly equipped them to provide instruction through the supported online tools. Average attendance was over 1,000 teachers attending webinars per week they were offered. To develop teacher collective efficacy, which is a core component in the Long Beach Unified Teaching and Learning Framework, virtual office hours were held as a space for support. They did not have a specific agenda. Their purpose was to lead with relationships and value the social-emotional well-being of adults. Teachers came together to ideate and ask questions. The peer-to-peer digital mentor program was designed to engage and connect the teacher community in Long Beach Unified and leverage knowledge in the system around G Suite applications through peer volunteers. We had 90 mentor teachers volunteer to support their peers. Matches were made with grade level and content areas in mind. The primary area of support was in elementary, which represented 54% of mentor requests. In week 5 of our support for home learning opportunities, it became clear that this would be our learning circumstance for the rest of the year, and we would not be able to go back to what we would have done in a physical classroom setting each day. In response to this information, we developed learning priority documents to guide teachers through the rest of the year's content and began to develop common language and understanding of quality pedagogy in digital environments. When we developed the learning priorities, we focused on essential learnings needed for the rest of this year. There was a greater emphasis on standards-aligned learning to ensure high-quality teaching through technology. While unit guides had been designed for daily face-to-face instruction, learning priorities took into account more limited contact with students, as well as synchronous and asynchronous modalities. We began to develop common language and understanding around pedagogical practices in a digital environment using Google applications. We considered common instructional moves and practices outlined in our teaching and learning framework, which in Long Beach we call our understandings document, often referred to as the U's, which the graphic here represents. We developed examples and curated promising practices in each of these areas with the available applications. When thinking about engaging our students in virtual learning, we knew it was vital to get voices from the field to help inform recommended strategies for engagement. We pulled together a small team of stakeholders who were supporting digital engagement at their sites to inform this resource that we made available through our teacher communication website. As capacity in both the technology and digital pedagogy deepened in the system, we began to see that teachers were collaborating on pedagogical moves anchored in our learning and teaching framework and the G Suite tools to support their students. To further spark innovative ideas and collaboration, we began to embed digital pedagogy into our curriculum virtual office hours. Each curriculum office highlighted promising practices from the field with a focus on engagement, and we began to see opportunities for innovation emerge. On the left is an example of an office hours schedule with specific topics and teacher guest presenters from the field highlighting innovations and promising practices. On the right is an example of a digital coaching menu. This was shared via Curriculum Office Google Classrooms. Teachers were able to select from topics to inform virtual office hours and/or to request specific support from the Curriculum Office. One notable innovation in the field was the way that our teacher induction office utilized the MyPD Unplugged and Learning Forward Thought Leader series of podcasts. Teachers in the induction program were able to listen to the podcast series as a form of professional development and reflect on their learning as part of the digital induction program offerings. As we moved into the final weeks of our school year, we were able to take stock of all the work that had been done to support teaching and learning throughout the time that schools were closed. We began to collect and codify the strategies and tools in the system in a digital pedagogy overview document, highlighting core instructional moves and alignment to the Long Beach Unified Teaching and Learning Framework. In this document, we gathered promising practices from the field in each of the Google applications that had been used to support home learning opportunities. We aligned these to our Long Beach Unified Teaching and Learning Framework, or understandings, as well as the associated instructional moves. Framing the work of instruction and pedagogy are the essential understandings of building teacher collective efficacy, as well as the importance of building strong relationships with students, which are both foundational concepts to our teaching and learning framework. Our ongoing work is to take what has been developed up to this point and begin to revision other system priorities and initiatives to be aligned to digital pedagogies and an online environment. For example, online strategies for the linked learning approach, which is a key initiative in our high schools, are being developed using the digital pedagogy document as a foundation from which to build. The work represented here is also informing the development of an online instructional framework for Long Beach. Here is the fully developed timeline of our roughly 13 weeks of support during school closure. The overall school closure response discussed here today represents the efforts, learning, and innovations of a large curriculum team comprised of willing lead learners listed here. Please access the slides provided with this presentation for the full listing. For additional information or questions, the contact list for the Office of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Development in the Long Beach Unified School District is listed here. You can access this contact information through the slides provided with this presentation. Thank you.